welcome everyone to the Kunsthalle Wien. It's nice to have so many people here. Maybe half of you are here because there is a performance upstairs, but I hope not. So today is the last day of this exhibition, and I am also happy to see among you also a lot of artists and people who contributed to the exhibition, who is kind of big and expanded. And we had the kind of defiance in the program of today, because we were supposed also to have other guests like David Platzker and Christophe Davier, but for different reasons and also related to book problems, so it's a noble reason they cannot be here. But I'm super happy to have instead in addition, Jonathan Michèle Didier and Christophe Boutin. And so today, in a way, we also kind of unfold one of the last chapter of this exhibition. So this talk is, in a way, conceived as a proper kind of chapter to analyze an aspect related to art publishing, which is about the way artists and publishers work together. And of course, is something that maybe for artists, publishers, and curators is something that for them is kind of is part of the daily practice. But I thought for would have been interesting to share also with a larger amount of people. So today, Jonathan, Michèle, and Christophe will be engaged in a kind of open and informal conversation about what does it mean to make a book from the two perspectives, the one of a publisher, the one of an artist. And Jonathan, I think, is among the artists of his generation, is one of the most active in the production of books, ephemera, printed matter in general. So very often his works is circulating through this type of material. And Michèle Didier, she's a publisher and a gallerist. Since many, many years you have been involved into this, and so you have also a space in Paris where you are doing exhibitions related always to the, in a way, to the work of the artist in the within this idea of publishing, working. And also she organized recently also an exhibition of the great Philippe Thomas that we have here, and curated by Emeline Jarret, who was actually here to talk. And Christophe Boutin, together also with Melanie Scarciglia, who is there doing Instagram, founded. Actually, Christophe was an artist before, or maybe still, we don't know. No, before. And in 2000, he founded One Star Press, which is a publishing house who produced, I think, over than 300 artist books following a kind of precise format. And later on in 2007, you founded Three Star Press, which instead is quite the opposite. Instead, is really, they do less kind of projects that are kind of pushing the boundaries between what a book is or can be and an artwork. And so I thought was kind of the proper candidates for this conversation. And so I will leave you the stage, and thanks for being here. Yeah.
You need your microphone. No, we're good, thank you very much. Well, just because I'm in the middle doesn't mean I have to...
No, because you're the artist, and the artist is key in that question.
Maybe. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how we're going to conduct this discussion or conversation or performance, perhaps. But I think Michèle wanted to start. Did you? Or do you not? That's what I heard. And then we'll go from there. we haven't really worked anything out or seen each other for quite a while, so it might be a little bit disjointed, but we'll do our best to entertain you. Okay.
And just would like to draw the text before making the talk with Jonathan and Christophe, because to read the text, sorry, because it's just there is not a book. This is what we call a multiple. So I just explained the context, how it was made at time. So from publisher to forger and back again. In 2009, Jonathan Monk approached me with a proposal to republish Chris Burden Dice Mila. His offer was quickly followed by a sinister warning. I have spoken to other editors about this project, but they all turned it down due to the risk involved. I was not fooled by what seems like a strategy, but my taste for challenges and my interest in both Monk's and Burden work were enough for me to take him on. To this day, criminal law punishes the counterfeiting of banknotes with a prison sentence. With Monk's Dice Mila, we are dealing with a double forgery. Firstly, the copy of Burden's work, and secondly, implicitly, the imitation of the 10,000 lira note originally carried out by Burden in 1977. Reappropriation is an important historical phenomenon because it's essentially an aim, a plan, an intention to write or rewrite history. It is a blessing for those whose memory is failing, and a stimulus for critics who must not rest on their laurels. And artists who practice reappropriation are rewarded. Their work is relevant, and they represent a contemporary belief that it's possible to have a grasp on all things. Besides, the art market often gives more value to the reappropriating artwork than to the original ones. I remember Robert Barry telling me his favorite artist was Jonathan Monk because he gave his work a revival. You can't call it reappropriation, or you can call it recognizing the value of history again. However, there are of course some pitfalls to watch out for. And in the case of Burden's Dice Mila, we can ask ourselves, is the transgressive nature of the 1977 work still intact when it is imitated? Because the reappropriated work becomes something else, even if it's completely identical. It allows us to either ignore or take a different approach to the issue of true or false and the question of copy. Monk approached me as a publisher and asked me to take on the role of forger, and it was a great pleasure for me. I have also the opportunity to practice the craft of counterfeiting with other publications like Alan Ropersberg, The New 5-Foot Shelf of Books, or Annette Messager, Mes Dessins Secrets. With Dice Mila, the artist adopted a more radical stance by purely and simply appropriating Chris Burden's eponymous work in 1977. The work Dice Mila consists of a double-sided facsimile of an Italian 10,000 lira banknotes. It is in a way a fake banknote and a real work of art signed by the artist Chris Burden. Monk replaces Burden here and goes so far as to imperil the notion of the ownership of the work, duplicating also his predecessor's signature. The edition of 35 copies is similarly repeated. Even the multiplication is reproduced. Pure tautology. We can observe that the mimetic operation carried out by Jonathan Monk is split in two, for the work to which Monk refers is itself a facsimile of a pre-existing object. Jonathan Monk identical reproduction of another artist's work is a conceptual art, with the added irony that the copied work is itself a work of conceptual art. A banknote as an art object leads naturally and literally to the question of the value of art, a fluctuating notion, if ever there was one. No longer in circulation, the Italian 10,000 lira note to which Burden referred in 1977 has since lost its exchange value to acquire that of a collector's item. Furthermore, the choice of this banknote was not accidental, for engraving in it the three-quarter portrait of Michelangelo. The aura of the artist competes with that of Monet, but in this case, the battle was long won. As for Monk, he asserts and consolidates here his position as an artist of succession and legacy. He develops his work according to the principle of kinship, which no sooner dreamed of comes true. Born in 1969, the artist never ceases to look back over the years of his birth, and is not without insolence that the artist converts the art of those decades, an art of rupture, to inscribe it in a new genealogy of which intimately he is the sole founding father.
Maybe we should clap. No, I'm joking. Well, that was great. Thanks very much. It's all about me. Well, not just about me, clearly, but I keep moving the microphone a bit. I was told not to do that.
Is what?
Sorry? No, it's fine. I just have to keep it still. Well, that was, I think, very interesting. Parts of it. No, all of it, actually. But I think what you two do is slightly different, how you go about producing artworks. I'm not sure, well, books as well, but you don't really, you do make books, but they're in very limited editions, no? Didn't you do the Robert Barry, the 1 billion dots?
30 copies, sorry.
Okay. But I think it's somehow different to what Christophe, although with 1-star books, is different to 3-star.
Yeah, there's 2 publishing houses, 1-star, as Luca pointed, in 2000 and 2007, 3-star. And would be happy to show you on the computer, if you can go on the web page, if it's possible. Yeah, it's coming.
How to do that? Maybe we get our technical team involved.
So we go to the 1-star page dedicated to yeah. And so maybe if we can scroll down, we can see these are the projects we started to do with Jonathan since a long time. And you know, it goes from a book to a wooden iPhone to a bronze iPhone that you will come and see also, and multiples also. And then if we go to the 3-star books page, which is the next one, you will see many book projects, including the last one that I brought here, 24 dessins isométriques Afrique cubique, which is his masterpiece with us. And you go down, and there's more projects. So it means that we've been collaborating a lot with this gentleman, especially that when Jonathan sends us a very short email and he says, I want to make a bronze iPhone, and this is it. And so we come up with the solutions, and then we produce the whole thing, and we just get certificates from him, and then we sell it. It's very easy. But this is for the iPhones, but most projects are not all as easy as this one to produce. So yes, he's prolific. He wants to do. He's like this. He's not the lonely. He's not only the only artist we've been collaborating like this that makes almost one project a day and submit it to different publishers like Michel or us. There's also Laurence Wiener that does this as a sport also every day. We receive an email every other day asking for a new project to be produced. It seems that for you, you just open the tap of water, then the water goes down, and then it's so easy, right?
I just make it look easy.
Yeah, okay.
It's a struggle, a constant struggle.
And then we just have to produce it and sell it.
That's probably the harder part, yeah. I would imagine. The actual production that I have very little to do with. Not always. I actually do quite a few things.
But you also have your own publishing house, but you don't make books.
We don't do books. That's the one thing we don't do. work with another artist occasionally, Douglas Gordon, on with a company called Little and Large Editions. But
this is your motto. You don't do books because why?
Because they're not so. Because they're expensive to do and difficult to sell.
Thank you. Yes, we know that. Yeah.
Whereas you can make other things, and they're the opposite. Easy to do and easy to sell.
It's complicated to do a book, right?
I mean, I'm not sure it's complicated to do a book. It's perhaps complicated to do a book really well. But it's pretty easy to do books.
Yeah. What is a book?
Oh, well.
Thank you.
I don't know exactly. I guess a folded sheet of paper is a book. Could be a book. Or one sheet of paper could be a book. I don't know. I really started doing things when I was at art school, which were just photocopied things that I sewed together.
You still have some of these ones?
One or two, yeah.
Can we buy these?
I only ever made one. That was the thing, because I had to sew them all together. It wasn't the photocopying; it was the rest that was difficult.
And do you keep track of everything that you produce? Do you have like a catalogue raisonné coming up at certain points?
I actually don't. I mean, apparently someone has a bit of an overview, and they might even be here, but I actually don't have much of a clue. Up to a point, I do remember all the things. I don't remember where they all are and who I did them with.
And how many publishers do you collaborate with in order to produce all these multiples and books and ephemeras?
I don't know exactly. A lot. I think what's good is if you have more people involved, you are able to come up with different ideas to fulfill the requirements of these different people. So for me to ask you guys, I mean, you probably could have, not with 1 star, but maybe the 3-star to do something like the 10,000 lira note. But it seemed like Michèle was much more able to do that.
So you think that each publisher has their own identity and possibles?
I think so, yeah. I think that's kind of a lot try and do many different things, but I think you have maybe I try and have an idea of what might fit to one specific person or another.
And why do you do all these multiples as opposed to, because it takes a long time to do these books. You know that it's complicated work, you have to control every step, rather than to do a work of art that is easier and maybe you make more money out of it.
Yeah, but it's not really about the money, is it? I think I actually quite enjoy the fact that it's still possible to make something small and it be equally as interesting or profound as something really big. And it's cheap to do and it's easy to give away or distribute.
It's all about the idea of a circulation, a different type of circulation.
In a way, yeah. I think that was initially why I even enjoyed making books at art school, because it was something that you could just do and not feel overly precious about, that you could just give them away, which I will actually do later on because I brought a few things with me. So if there are any interesting questions, you get a free gift, whether you like it or not.
Do I give you some interesting questions? Can I get
No,
something
I think you've got all the books.
Yeah.
But I think I don't know whether we should talk more about this idea of production, because I think that's what Luca really wanted me to.
Yeah, production.
This idea of production.
Yeah. But you see, and then there's another aspect, and Luca is here, and then he's been trying to find a very beautiful solution how to present book. To present book is the most complicated things to do. You know that, exhibiting in your gallery. And I think that what Rio Grande did here is a very nice way to think about how to present books. But in the meantime, there's a lot of these books that you cannot manipulate. They're under glass. So maybe Luca can tell us more about this problematic question.
Yeah, we are. As we said, it's a stage improvisation, so we don't know. But I mean, of course, it's not easy, and that was the main issues also, or problems that I had to deal with working on the exhibition, you know, because displaying books is already, for me, a kind of nonsense in a certain way, because it's really like the opposite of the reason why you make a book is about producing something which is not a unique object that can be distributed and circulate in a way and having a very different experience from the classical ordinary experience you usually have with an art object. But for example, here with the display, of course, you always think, and you have to face the problem of having a book that is protected, and it's not only about the economic value, because, for example, in this exhibition, we don't have super expensive books, so we have also some magazines that are pretty kind of inexpensive, but they become rare, or you just have to borrow from someone, so you are forced to protect them. But at the end, I think is a fake problem, this, because even if you can read a book, or you can flip through the pages of a book, it's not really reading. And so I don't think you can really make exhibition space into a reading room. That's why it's an index. I'm just saying, discover these things here, and then you can experience outside. I mean, it's the reason why when I was studying, I started to collect a lot of Jonathan's books, because they were very inexpensive, I really like, and for me they were considered already as a work. And of course, maybe is related to a personal kind of passion of conceptual arts and certain works of 60s and 70s. But I think, of course, what's happening now, it's, I mean, also the idea of artist book and a multiple is kind of different. I think all these categories is hard to, you know, to distinguish exactly, because at the end it seems always connected to technical, you know, things. But some of the editions or projects that both you, Michelle, and with also you with Star Press produce are also pretty expensive. They're expensive as an ordinary piece, even if they're kind of editions. So, but for me it was also interesting to see and to know from you what can be also working with contemporary and kind of young and mid-career artists, but also with kind of older generation. What's kind of the difference, or if you have seen and experienced a difference of working with them, because through them I think you get to know also the way they work in the, for example, in the 70s, in the 60s, and also I think with Jonathan we talk about, for example, the way Ed Rusche was working is a bit also the same with the designers, you know, now the designer assume a role much more kind of power as an author than was before. And of course this changed from case to case, but
we tend at 3-Star Books and 1-Star Press to have no designers inside the game between us and the publisher, only if the artist wants the designer to be participating specifically. If you could go, if you click on your beautiful name, which is on the top. Yes. And then you can go, and then we will present you a book that was designed by two German designers living in Paris, Wir Fünf. Maybe you go down a little bit. Or maybe this one, okay, RM, yeah, this is good. And so the idea, maybe you can explain us the idea, Jonathan, about the Billboard book project and how it came up and what happened exactly with this project. Thank you.
Sorry. Well, this was, when did 2012? The first one must have been 2010
Earlier. Yeah.
Or 9. And the idea was to try and make a book that sort of advertised itself, but also thanked or at least mentioned everyone that was involved. Literally everyone. Well, that was the idea. To be able to find not only the printer and the binder, but also the names of the guys that drove the paper to the printer, and who'd made the paper, and where the ink came from, and how it was developed, and how the project really in its entirety became apparent. And then once this information was kind of clear, or at least set, then it could be done in different cities. Maybe
then it became a poster.
The Paris one is perhaps clearer.
Then it becomes a poster, and then the poster is then cut into pieces and bound together in order to create the book. So the book itself is self-contained in its production and its...
Yeah, but the designers of this particular one then also wanted to reference the idea of the books and the size of books.
Yeah, because actually these are two designers from London, OKRM, and the designers, they wanted to, because the project was born in Paris. It was called the Billboard Book Project Paris, and then so we did it then in London and then New York, but the London one refers to England by the size of the paper that were used, which is the royal size paper, that the font that is used, which is the Times, and their English designers. So the designers really created the book for Jonathan and us. And then, so there was just a statement, no, from you?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure I even had to do anything, did I? Once the first one had been done, it was then, you just followed these kind of principles or the rules that I sort of determined.
So you just are surprised when the book comes up?
Well, in a way, because I really don't know what to expect. I mean, specifically this one, because it was very different, every size. So the billboard was always the same size, but when it's cut into pieces, then of course the smaller one has a lot more pages and they're much smaller.
It's a folio, it's a quarto, and then it's octavo, because it's folded the way the printer folds. So this is the poster, and then you see the 5 different versions of the book, which is the same poster folded and cut. Folio is the big one on the left-hand side, and then quarto, then octavo, and then it goes down and down until the small one. So, and then you got the Royal 32 Mo, which is the smaller one. Royal Folio. Royal is the English size paper. It was presented for the first time at the Sunday Art Fair, an art fair that was at that time organized by Ryan Gander's wife. Actually, Ryan Gander is this other artist, English artist, that is really dedicated also to book projects. He does a lot of books. And then, I mean, most of the artists that we like do book, like your artists that you work with, Michèle.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I think are not all artists really interested in books, or is it?
Correct.
I mean, up to a point. I mean, it's nice to. If I press that, does it?
What do you want to look at now?
I don't know, just to go back, but it doesn't want to do. I'm not really very good at computer stuff. Maybe we get our technical expert in, or has he gone for a coffee? Maybe go to the pictures that I took, and then we can just like.
It's a very nice computer.
Oh, people are leaving. Okay, so I actually took a lot of photos. I don't remember that.
Maybe with the arrows, no?
Yeah. No, we can maybe just do it like this. Oh, yeah. So I took a lot of photographs because I wasn't exactly sure how this talk was going to work, and I wasn't really expecting the whole thing just to be about me, but it doesn't really need to be, and I was hoping we could just have these go through. So it's, I don't know, so I don't have to talk about individual things, but maybe I talk about this particular project, because maybe it was the first artist book, or one of the first that I did, that also references other artists. And it was called Cover Version, and I did it with Bookworks in London in 2000 and something. Maybe 2001 or 2 or 3, somewhere like that, or maybe 4. And basically we made 3 different books, well, 3 different covers. So you could buy it for £10, €15 or $20. And this came, I like this idea because it had come from a book that Lawrence Wiener did called Statements, where it has the price $1.50 on the cover, and I think now it probably costs $500. But I just like this idea that you were advertising how much it was, and then to make 3 different ones in 3 different prices. I kind of also knew that most collectors of artist books would buy all 3 of them. So it's using that kind of basic understanding of what people kind of like me do and what the book represents, which they're the 3 covers in detail. Hopefully we took a photograph of the inside. No, we didn't, that's stupid. But basically the book is an excuse to document my collection of Sol LeWitt books. So I've got, I don't know how many books altogether, 40 something. Sol LeWitt books, and this book just shows photographs of the covers of his books. There's no information about his books, I'm just using the pictures of the books. It doesn't tell you who published them. It's not really a bibliography of what he's done, it's just these are books that I happen to own or have collected over the years. Do you know how to put this on to slideshow so it just goes? Do it without looking. How do I do it? Oh yeah. So I've done lots of different books with lots of different people, as we said before. That's my daughter there on the cover of this little thing that I made for the Whitechapel Gallery. This is a book that I did with someone that just asked me because they'd seen things that I do a series of works called restaurant drawings that I draw on, well, I go for dinner and then I make a drawing on the receipt and I sell the drawing for the same price as the dinner. So basically I've not paid to eat for 2.5 years, which is quite good. But it's quite a lot of work and I don't make any money, I just eat.
But then you work.
Well, then it's really work. But anyway, the book, the guy in New York asked me if he could do a book, but someone else was already making a book about the actual drawings. So I said, you can use why don't we do something with all of the bits of paper that I use to make the drawings? I thought there'd be more. So this is one of them. It's Keith Arnott, I'm a Real Artist, and then I would draw this on a receipt and sell it for €15. It's all on Instagram, if you're interested.
You can line up to buy the drawings on Instagram.
Yeah, I'll not tell you about all of the things because it'll just take too long. It's a bit boring. This is a catalogue I did with the ICA in London. And again, we had 2 different colours on the cover, and one's blue and one's red. And I only have the red one. So if anyone has the blue one, I can swap for one of the red ones. It's it's a little bit sad. But I think, yeah, I mean, I've been fortunate because a lot of different institutions have let me just do whatever I want. Even when it's supposed to be a catalogue for an exhibition, I turn it into an artist book. This was for a show I did at Arnold Feeney in Bristol. And it doesn't relate to the show at all, but they happily produced this book of kind of bad photocopies of works that I actually really liked. So Bruce Nauman and Dan Graham. I mean, I like this idea that these were images that I found in the bin at a photocopy shop or in a library. Again, this book, it was for a show I did in Glasgow in 2009, and they let me just turn it into a document of the kind of ephemera that I've collected. So this is a Sol LeWitt invitation card that happens to be reprinted within the pages of the book. So these are the things that I was talking to you about, this idea of finding different publishers that are interested in working with me on different things.
So you have like very high-end production and very low-end production in the meantime?
I prefer the low. I don't know. It's not like I prefer low-end production, but I think it's sometimes just easier to deal with than the high-end thing.
Yeah, we deal with the high-end.
Yes, I'm more low level.
Actually, I can show you here a book that we just brought, which is about LeWitt, because you've been telling the name of LeWitt many times since you started.
Did I?
Yeah.
Mentioned it maybe three times.
Maybe 6 or 7 already.
Ah, okay.
It's not so bad. So it's a project.
So gather round, everyone.
Can you tell us?
I mean, that's the other thing with books, that it's like really, not like within the context of the exhibition here, you are able to look at them. But I remember speaking with Seth Sieglaub, who made a lot of catalogues mainly, but also artist books in the, I guess, the late 60s until not so long, maybe over only a 5 or 6 year period, one of which is called, I'm not even sure it's called, but it's known as the Xerox Book. And it's kind of, I think it was made for, I don't know, Philip Morris was supposed to sponsor it, but in the end they didn't get enough money to make it with a Xerox copier, so it was really printed, but still it's called the Xerox Book. I think it's 10 artists, got 10 pages each, but I'm guessing it might have been different.
How many copies of the Xerox Book do you have?
I only have one, but it was, I also have a facsimile copy, because that's what I was saying, is Seth, whenever there was an exhibition to show this book, he would just give them, I don't know, information so they could print it out. So it was available to actually handle and look at. It wasn't so super important to see the original, because they're all the same. So the copy of the original is basically the same as the original. So.
And how many copies of the Ed Rocher? Which one do you have? Like
Crackers.
Yeah. Just to give you a little insider information, Jonathan is buying crackers, right?
I only really buy crackers and LeWitt books or Richard Prince at the moment.
And he wants to get the whole edition back to his home.
No, the 3,000. I have 40, and that's a lot. But my plan is to buy another 10 by the end of next year, and then I only have to buy one a year.
Yeah, but as long as you go, the price goes up.
It's not. It's still the cheapest Ed Rocher book.
You can still find it.
Yeah, you can still get it, and people actually give them to me.
How many editions were on this book?
3,000.
I mean, how many? Maybe 1 and 2 editions?
No, they only did it once. He didn't like the book, apparently. That's, I think, why it's still easy to get. Yeah,
but 3,000 was a large print run for his books.
It was, yeah. But it was a bit later, I think 75, that one.
Okay. So I can show you this project here. Maybe you can talk about it a little bit.
I think you can probably talk about it more than I can. Well, it was, yeah.
So speaking about LeWitt. So it's another LeWitt rip-off.
I'm not sure it's a rip-off. But it's funny, I actually met LeWitt a couple of times, and he even owned one of, the reason why I bought a lot of LeWitt books is because I made films using the books. I made 16mm animations from a lot of his books. This kind of serial repetition worked really well with like a cartoon. So it was like a flip book, using a LeWitt as a flip book. And he even owned, or the foundation owns, one of them. And that particular book that we took the images from, I bought at his retrospective in New York for $16. And then I met him later on that day, and he signed it for me. I thought that was quite nice.
Yeah, he was a very gentleman.
Yeah.
Are you ready to sign your books?
I sign almost anything. Yeah, I mean, some of these aren't really artist books. They're more, I don't know, things that people ask me to do. Like this is done by the Thing Quarterly. I think they have a few things here. And they wanted to make a calendar that they could give to the members of their organization.
You know that it's a defunct publishing house now. It's over.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, so these are very rare. But basically, I do a series of works where I arrange to meet people in the future. And this was a kind of calendar that would somehow tell everyone where I would be at specific times. I didn't realize that. It's probably really dangerous. And one of which was on the Golden Gate Bridge. And even with this, the arrow is stuck on. So everyone is different because it's stuck on. I know, I thought that was quite nice. I like these.
It's a sticker.
It's a sticker, yeah. So it's all positioned slightly differently each time. No one notices that, but yeah. I mean, again, these are things that are more documents for projects that I've done rather than specifically artist books. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think it'd be easier if we spoke more about your ideas of production and how you relate to artists, not specifically me, and how easy or how difficult certain things can be depending on the demands of individuals. Because I don't know, I'm perhaps far too easygoing, and I know that a lot of artists are much more...
We only work with artists like you.
Okay.
And I just have a question. Is that at the end could be an entire work, all your collection of books you do? Is it can be understand like a real entire work, or is it just step by step? You at the end, you know what I mean? Because it's every time you make a book, it's like just you make a stop on a reflection of art and history. So at the end of your life, of course it's not necessary to think about that now, but can we imagine that if we see the entire collection, your collection, what you did, could be a work, a real work?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely assume it could be seen as that. And it is a document, it's a way to document things that I do that aren't necessarily the artworks that I might make. I try and do things that within book form that don't necessarily relate to things that I make as an artist, even though they're probably basically the same. I'm not really very good at photographing books, as you can see here. A lot of paper was shiny. That was not my idea. So this is another LeWitt reference. Here you go. But this is basically my entire collection of LeWitt books. As you can see here,
9.
The shape of the book, but made as a kind of relief. So as if all the books were laid out on tables. And this changes all the time. This is the first version, and there was a second version that had 2 more books on, and I think there'll be a third and fourth with more books. So it's all, yeah, it's constantly changing, and I enjoy this idea of developing a kind of a basic project that can move forwards. And it probably is if you buy all the books, you don't have to buy any of the artwork, which is probably a good idea.
You saw the catalog that was published at the occasion of the first retrospective of Laurence Wiener, the blue one, the big blue one. He didn't participate to this book, and precisely, I don't think he liked it very much. What would you think about a catalog about you? Does it exist? Do you have like some kind of a retrospective catalog that speaks about your work? Because all these are artist books, and they don't, I mean, it's very difficult to understand who you are with these books unless you see all the books together and then you try to think about what they are. They are just like snippets of your flux of ideas sometimes, or more ambitious projects. And then, so it's not, it doesn't give you too much information about your work. It's your work in itself.
Sure.
So
is the Laurence Wiener work?
And the Laurence Wiener is because as for Laurence, he designs every single of his projects in book form. on that specific one, because it was a retrospective and a reflective work about his production along the years, it was a bad book to look at.
The Works one.
No, the works were good, but inside. But
the book is called Works.
It works. That's it. Yeah, it's.
Yes, but it was more like a catalog, you know, like a book. It was not a book. Yeah.
So, do you have one of these books about your work? I mean,
I think there are some. No, I definitely do. There are catalogues that could be seen as being.
And do you collaborate on these books, or you don't?
No, definitely.
Because he didn't collaborate at all. He let people do it. So
well, I mean, I'll show. I quickly try and run through, because tell me if you want me to stop at any point. That's my hand. Because I actually asked. I'm trying to find it. I can go back if that was quite. There's Ed Richet.
That's you too.
But I asked Lawrence if he would design a book cover for me. And I'm hoping it's probably right at the end, or it's not even here. There. So I asked if he would design. The actual book I really don't like. Sorry if there's anyone from Malaga in Spain here. But I don't like the book, because it's not what I really wanted to do. The show was just taking, I don't know, we got 20 things together, 20 works of mine, and just put them in the show. And for me, it was the installation that made the work. And then within the catalogue, they just have pictures of the individual works, page by page, and it's a bit boring. But they wanted to do it before the show was done. But anyway, I asked Lawrence if he would design the cover for me. And this is what he did. And the show wasn't called Alakazam. It had any reference to that at all, but I just thought it was so great. Make me as many as you can. So we made posters and T-shirts and bags. No, we didn't, but that was the kind of, I like that idea that we could have just done all of these things. What was your initial question? About the idea of doing catalogues. So there are some, and this is also one that I don't really like, but there are other ones that I do like a lot, that I work with the designer on coming up with an idea with how we could get it to be both interesting and sort of funny at the same time. There you go, look. But the colour's really wrong.
The colour is very bad. It's in fact grain, completely grain.
Yeah. But there's the...
And it has 4 holes, right? Like this.
No. No, I just forgot to talk about something. It's about the signature of Boutin.
Yeah, there you see.
Yes, in fact, we also reproduce the signature. So it's signed Chris Boutin, and it was very difficult to make the signing or the signature of Boutin, because it's like a surfer, you know, because Bur is on the left and then it's directly go back to the right, and it's very difficult to imitate.
I actually met the original publishers of that in San Francisco. Was it Crown Point Press?
It's a Crown Press.
And they actually were super annoyed that I'd done that, and they thought Chris Boutin would have hated it, but there you go.
Can I just explain a story with that? In New York, the first time I present the Chimela, it was in a fair, and this what the name of fair was, EAB, and I directly see one of the owner of the Crown Press would come, and she comes because she is the partner, female partner, and she comes with a curator, and she said, well, look at what we did with Chris Boutin. I say, gosh. I said, not the words. And it was so well reproduced that she didn't see the difference, yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, it is really basically exactly the same, no? Mm-hmm. It's the same.
It's the same.
And that's the back, if you hadn't seen it already. And there's the front of one of your books. I thought I'd have to put images of things with these guys, otherwise.
Yeah, but this is interesting because here, 4-5, the designers that designed this Billboard book project Paris, when Jonathan saw the format and everything, he said, I want something on the cover, maybe you can invent something nice. And they came up with this design, which we don't know what it is. You see, it's just jazz music on top of it. And this was the desire of Jonathan, to have some jazz.
So this one actually, there was a billboard in Paris, very briefly.
They were all billboards at the fair, or this one in Paris, and then in New York in the street. Yeah,
true. There's the Green Book. Do you want to talk about the Green Book?
Yeah, because after we finished the first one, then there was another desire to do, if you can, do you have the you see in Paris when they cover the old posters in the subway with green paper, and so it's the Billboard book, but it's like very simple monochrome green.
Isn't it known as the Green Book?
Yeah, it's called the Green Billboard book. And you can tell us about this project with.
This is it's actually a photographic work that I've done for a long time, where I just buy Ilford photographic paper and have the cover of the box photographed, and then have that picture printed on all the paper inside. And I've done a lot of them over the years, some with even like 500 sheets of paper. And this was the entire collection in one book. I mean, normally it's a photographic series, but we made them all in the. I don't think there are any pictures inside, I'm afraid. But basically, say there's a picture like this one, which normally has 50 papers. So you turn, and on 50, you have to go through 50 pages of exactly the same thing, and then you'll come to another which has a smaller size of paper, like 10 by 8 and 6 by 4, or I don't know the sizes. And then you turn through that. And it's one of these books that I actually quite like, that you only really need to look at once. Because then it's just so cumbersome. It's, I don't know, it's maybe 50 centimeters by 35 centimeters and really heavy. So it's a kind of cumbersome, not even coffee table book, because you just can't flick through it. The book itself is inside this box, which is made like a photographic paper box, and it also...
It's not bound.
The book is bound.
The book is bound.
But it also comes in one of these really big, thick black plastic bags that photographic paper comes in, so it doesn't meet the light that would thus destroy it. Whereas the book inside just rarely meets the light because no one wants to read it. And here's your book. Look, here you see inside, more pages. That was the last one. So if there's any... Tell me when to stop. Okay. This is things that I've done often where you get... This is a book that I'd made. I was talking about one earlier with the restaurant drawings. This is 100 meals between Rome and Berlin, and we made 2 different colors. So there's a pink version and a blue version, but also I'm not sure how many, where I hand wrote the title on the covers. So there's maybe 30 handwritten covers for any book collectors out there in the audience tonight. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I could go on probably for longer, but I guess it's a bit boring. Questions?
For Michèle and Christophe. So I'm curious to know more, how do you see your role as a publisher? I mean, do you see yourself as just like someone who helps an artist to make their dreams possible, to realize just their wishes, or in the daily base or in your collaboration with different artists, do you intervene also in the ideas, or sometimes say, okay, I don't like these ideas at all, or if you have examples of things, or so it's only like, okay, you approach the artist, that's most of the time the case, or not, or you really want to work with that artist and then you start to, how it is, this, how, if you can share more about this, and also I'm curious why you decide to do what you do. Also, Michèle, you founded in 1987, and of course it's a very different scenario, and in terms of the dynamics, the economical and distributional dynamics were very different from now, and I think the artwork was also much smaller, and also in terms of economy, do you think that your audience is now larger than was before, and yeah, these two aspects?
First question, it's about the desire, my desire to work with an artist. I usually fix a kind of a protocol, is to reach the artist and to ask a specific project. I usually know that this project will not be the final project, because it's just a way to introduce a conversation with him, and also a way to open the door to think about something, maybe that thing, but many times other things. So that this is my kind of attitude. Just I can't arrive to an artist studio without any idea. I just put an idea, and sometimes it's this idea will becomes a project, but many times it becomes something else. And this is very interesting to engage this kind of dynamic. And for my experience, because I'm now a publisher since 30 years, today the context is completely different at the beginning, of course, but the audience at the end, it's not larger in a way. It's because I think I still work with the institution, because I decided at time to make my own distribution directly, because you cannot survive if you share your distribution with some people who care about that, because it's too expensive, so it was not financially possible to do it. So I decided directly after 1 year to organize my own distribution with the museums and the Department of Artist Books in America, essentially because they have a long history with the artist books. So that's what I did. And so now I continue to organize my distribution like this, and to use my réseau. You say réseau? Network, sorry. And to use this network. So now it's become a little bit larger, but not so much. And there also are some private art collectors who are very concerned by the artists, by the work of the artist itself. Like with Jonathan, I sell some Decemela to his own collector, private collector, and of course of the museums. And so that's how I do and how I work today. But it still stays a very small economy in publishing house, and we still always be very careful when we engage some production, because it's very expensive, and it's more and more expensive, because for my part, I am very concerned by the very difficult work, and so it takes time and it takes a lot of money. So it's always, every time, very dangerous. Not dangerous in a way of physical, but I think it for the surviving of the publishing hours. So this is my position. I can have another attitude with the artist and also with the publishing. So that's why I'm so limited in a way for my aesthetic. And
so you mostly sell to institutions.
Yes.
And why you, in 1987, you decide to open a publishing house? And also to do, and to open a gallery and devoting to this type of exhibitions that of course are connected to the editions you produce with the artists. Also, you don't work with a huge number of artists, seems also.
At that time, I didn't want to. I want to produce. I'm very exciting by the production. I really like it, and I come from a craftsman family a long time ago, so I'm very concerned by that, and I really would like to engage in that, the production. So that I didn't want. I am an art historian, and I didn't want to work in a market, in a gallery, a traditional gallery. So that's why I decided to produce something with artists. And so I directly work with conceptual artists, and of course the artist books. The books was the medium they used to do and to like it, to love it. So that's what I do. That's what I did, and that's how I started. Yeah.
Christophe, instead with, One Star Press, I think the principle is kind of to produce artist books with certain kind of, not limitations, but with some...
Yeah, you can say limitations.
Limitations, and then at the end, the price are quite affordable, I think, no? They all
we hope so.
I think 30 euros.
I mean,
35.
these books are mainly collected by people that are interested into the works of the artist. They do not inform about the work of the artist. They are the work itself. So if you look at the book by Olivier Mosset, for instance, this Swiss artist, it's just the same 5-star, it's a star on each page, 450 pages, printed in black and white, poorly with a cover color, and it's printed in red on the cover, and this is it. So who wants to buy this book, you see? So this is a very limited edition. Why? Because, some people that really collect him and like his work and understand his work. You see, we didn't want to reproduce the model of Something Else Press back in the 60s and 70s when they produced all these books, and then at that time it was printed offset, and so they had like a huge inventory, and they went bankrupt completely. So here, for this specific collection, we print on demand, so we have a limited stock, and then we print along the sales. The other thing which is important for us with One Star Press, and I encourage you to go to see our website, is we give away every PDF of every book that we've been publishing since 2000. So the content of the book is available as a PDF for free for anybody. And then if you want to buy the fetish object, and this is another subject we can speak with Jonathan, not speaking about your specific practice, but about the idea that all these books have fetishes for the artist. Why do they want to work with these books? At that time, when Laurence Quiner again and all the conceptual scene were producing this book, this was the only medium for them to be able to distribute their work and to make the people, the art collectors and the art crowd, to make understand what they were doing. Now, I would say if an artist has something to say important, he will go on the internet and then he will create a website. But still, this book, even with this very younger artist that we work with at One Star Press, the artists are very much interested into producing this object for a reason that goes beyond our understanding. It's the fetish aspect that comes into the situation. There's something a bit interesting to search here, don't you think so?
Yeah, I definitely do. I don't know, I was at this awkward age, not that I'm at an awkward age now, but I think I went to art school before there were computers, clearly, but we didn't have them. We didn't have computers at art school. We didn't have mobile phones. Technology was kind of pretty basic, and it wasn't even that long ago. So I grew up with this idea that a book was still something that you could kind of piece together and give away, as I said maybe 55 minutes ago, and I still believe that now.
Yeah, Printed Matter, the Printed Matter, the bookstore, which is in New York, which is like the reference bookstore for that type of activity around artist books, it's been created back in the 70s by these artists because they wanted to disseminate their work and find a place where they could gather all these productions around the world and put it in one place. But printed matter has no reason to be now. You see, there's a funny,
well,
even if we think that it's a great thing, but it's...
I think the internet is great to be able to find books. You can find books and then the people can send you the book so you can actually have the book. You spend so much time looking at a little screen, be it on your phone or on the computer, that it's actually nice to sit away from a screen, although I sometimes watch football at the same time. But to be able to, I don't know, look at a book for a while. Even Olivier Mosset, where the thing's the same on every page. It's not even so important. It's nice to have this object, and it does, as Lawrence Wiener said, furnish a room. Didn't he say that one?
I understand you very well. I think it's not a problem of fetishism. I think a book is a space. A book is a time. It's really a space organized. So this experience of the space of this time cannot be done on a PDF. A PDF is okay, but it's something else, completely different. So it has nothing to do, I think, with fetish on that. This is physical, and this is a space organized by the artist, and the work is passed through this space and the time to open a page and to come to another one. It's like a sequence. So this experience cannot be made in a PDF. PDF is another tool to see a book.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think it's absolutely right. The PDF is just information, and then the book is an experience, a physical experience with the viewer. So that's why, again, it's so difficult to do a show with books under glass. So that's why, it's all about and then actually I saw more people in the bookstore than actually in the show at some point. You see, they all go, and they want to manipulate, touch, ruin the books. I hate when people ruin the books, but, when they touch it. But, Yeah. No, the fetish is, I say the fetish, it's all about the idea that is so desirable for an artist. It's funny because each time we approach an artist or they approach us, we approach them, they never refuse to do a project with us. It's like almost a yes each time. And then we have to go on with production, which is like a long way.
Yeah, but I think it's, I don't know exactly, I'm sure there have been studies made, but someone like my daughter, I don't know, 16-year-old, who has probably never owned a record. I mean, a vinyl record was something that you kind of coveted, or you'd had to go to the shop and flick through, and then you would find it and you would buy it. You go home, you put it on the record player, you listen to it, you read the sleeve notes, you find this, often they would, anyway. But my daughter now just listens to music on the internet and on Spotify. She doesn't even know what the band looked like, or maybe they have record covers on the actual thing.
They have videos.
Do they?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know. But anyway, it's completely changed how we kind of digest information now.
Yeah, but then now for music, now there are the concerts that are becoming very big. Live music is very important again. So you see, live music is like a book. You understand? You go and you experience something physically. Then you have the music, which is digital, and then you have the experience of going to the concerts.
I used to go to concerts.
I'm into pop music too.
Well, I'm not. I am into specific types of pop music, but I haven't been to a concert for quite a while.
Oh, I'll take you next time you're in Paris.
Okay, that's good. Does anyone else have any really simple, straightforward yes/no questions?
And you can win Jonathan Monk's.
Oh yeah, I've got some books that I can walk with my microphone. Normally it's not like this. It's like being at a concert, actually. No, I did bring, apart from We're Not So Interesting, as, say, I don't know, the Rolling Stones. But
so you mean the best questions wins the best?
No, it's not about winning. It's about taking part. I don't know. I just brought a few things because I didn't do this one. But I just thought if I had these things that, I mean, I'm not going to take them away, so they'll be here. If someone wants them, they can have them. because it's really just about spreading the word in a way, and not specifically mine or yours or anyone's.
Can I pick somebody in the audience to give something?
No.
Not Melanie?
No, but I mean, if there are questions, you don't have to take a book. I mean, it's a burden often, not particularly Chris burden, but it can be when you're given something that you don't necessarily want, and I get that all the time. People send me things. I hope there's no one here that has actually sent me something. And then you feel responsible to look after it for X amount of time. And I know how difficult it can be. So if they're still here tomorrow, maybe the cleaner will take them. I don't know. But if there are any questions or anything, or does anyone else should we talk about something else? Because it's only been an hour and 10 minutes.
It's only 2 hours we've been speaking.
No, an hour and 10 minutes.
No, it's not so bad.
Is that all right?
Yeah, I think so. Luca, it's okay?
No, but we could do, I mean, I'm fine to talk for longer. For a bit longer, not much longer. I mean, I can show you some more books. I don't know. Well, this is one that I did with a publisher in Switzerland. I can't pronounce the publisher's name, so I'll not. But it was basically, I had this idea that this was something that he told me was impossible. My idea was to have a book that was just colophons, like all the information by the publisher, but the book would be published by all of these people. So there would be maybe 100 publishers that were all putting a small amount of money into the book, and they would get a page, and it would just be their information. But it proved, he thought it would be very difficult to get everyone involved. But I don't know. It's still something that I want to do. But anyway, I made this as a kind of...
A lot of administration, right?
Well, no, you just go, well, yeah, I guess you just need to ask them, and if they say yes, they send you an email with the logo and what they need to write. But it's, yeah, it would have been a job. So then I decided as a starting point, I would make these, he calls them fanzines. They're small, like A5. I don't think I brought any because I don't have many. And I just the first one was for, you can't see it, for a book fair that was in LA. So I photographed books from my library. I've tried to photograph the colophon from artists that were either from LA or books that were published in LA. So there was a connection to LA and death in this case. And then I did one for New York, which was the same. So it was just things that I had in my library, just photographed on my phone and emailed to them. I'm so contemporary, I thought, and then it was made as a book. So that's one thing I did. This is a book that I made with Christophe Keller that used to run Revolver. It was called Potato Print Spells Potato Print. And it was basically potato prints that when you read through the book, it said potato print spells potato print. And it was a book for children. It's actually quite a good book, I thought. But it was really, I made potato prints. I thought it was like, and then we printed color, and then there's only one existing with rounded corners. That's the only one. All the others are square, 90 degrees. Yeah, there's a lot of things that I've done, I suppose, when you look at it like this. But these are catalogues for shows, even though they don't necessarily look like them. This one's called Pistoletta, Il Cane di Pistoletto. But it's just difficult to explain if you don't see it. You have to understand the context. Anyway, I should stop. But really, there are no questions. It's hard to believe. Here's one, sorry.
What is the difference between a billboard and a poster?
Yes. So, specifically, probably nothing. I mean, I always just imagine a billboard as just a little bit bigger. But it's the... a billboard, I think a billboard in English anyway, it's just this, like normally the advertising spaces in the city. You have them here, don't you? It's just a advert, big thing in the street. Do they still do that? It used to be very popular in the 1980s.
It's a question of dimension and also.
Well, yeah, a poster is like A0 as a really big poster, but it could be A1, and a billboard could be, 6 meters by 4 meters. So it's down to size again.
Thank you for that question. Did you win something?
Oh yeah. Have you got a tape recorder? Sorry. No, pleasure.
Anybody interested? There's good stuff here. And you can sign it after, right?
I don't know. Maybe.
For the publishers, do you see yourselves as competitors, or do you sometimes work together? Or do you fight for artists?
No.
No competitive, and we don't work together.
No. Each publisher has its own philosophy, its own way of working, and you want a book, and so there's no. Yeah, of course. Sometimes we work with a similar artist. Yes.
Similar artists.
Yes. Jonathan, for instance, because Jonathan is a whirlwind.
Maybe.
Another.
Oh, so only those three, are they together?
No, we don't have enough.
Well, not for everyone.
I haven't asked my question yet. Okay. I know you two both work with artists for artist books or related publications. And I'm wondering because it's quite different from the commercial publishing. So when you publish a book, do you have like a target audience that you wish to reach, or it's kind of like something you throw out there and let it just kind of organically develop and grow?
No, it's each project for One Star Press is a very open publishing house. We do a lot of projects. We do maybe 20 projects per year, so it goes on and on because the economy is very small on this, but also the books are not too expensive to produce, so we can find the system in order to sell the books. For 3-star books, yes, we think about with the artist, when the artist is defined and the project is happening, like an economic model that goes around the project in order not to lose money. We've been here as for Michèle for 20 years now, and Michèle 20 years also. So it's a long time. And so we are still alive, which is amazing in terms of, as Michèle pointed, it's a very delicate and economical, thing to find, an equilibrium. And yes, we go on and then we do. And there's no target. The only target is to do the best book possible for us. That's the only thing. And then it goes on, and then we propose it to the people we know, the most collectors and museums and institutions. This is where we usually place all these projects.
But it's true. You use the term organic, and which is very interesting because every time we make a publication, we contact the organic system of the artist itself and with belonging to the same world. So that's we have to adjust every time for different part of the art system. So that this is true that we have to orient it in different ways. So this is very interesting. This is very complex, but we have to taking care and to take really attention to know where we go, who we contact, because it's important to be in the right place and to be for the artist in the good collection and in a good opportunity, and find a good opportunity to sell the work. So that's very, very interesting, yeah, and very organic.
And we can proudly announce today to Jonathan Monk, and this is a good occasion, that this book has been sold to the Centre Pompidou and will be available at the Bibliothèque Kandinsky for everybody. We like to sell books to institutions because we think that this is a way to give it back to the public, because it's accessible in a second time to the public. Of course, there's a lot of collectors, private collectors for that type of project, but then it goes into a private collection. It's, you know, it becomes. But when it goes to the institution, for us, it's the best, and maybe for the artist too.
Yes, I'm sure it is very good for the artist. I don't actually mind, but I guess when they go to a museum and they're available and people can see them, it's sort of important. But whether they actually want to, again, is another thing. I'm never sure.
What you're not sure what?
Whether they want to look at my books or there needs to be space set aside for it.
Maybe in 40 years' time.
In 4 years' time, or?
Yeah, 4 years.
Yeah, I have a question about appropriation. In times, I mean, the question is how exhausted is appropriation in times of online publication? Merci. I mean, I really like appropriation, but it's only appropriation, or it lost this incendiary thing that it used to have. Or this is what we do today, every day, like we post and repost on Insta and Regram. And yeah, I'm wondering.
No, I agree. I don't think it has the power that it might have once had. I mean, in the 1960s, when it suddenly became, or maybe 70s, popular. But I suppose someone like Andy Warhol was doing basically the same, adding a little bit of a twist. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I think right now it's like, because some people, I don't know whether I am, like Instagram has become a way of sharing images, and it's just, as you say, a constant, like, stealing of anything. And I think it's also totally fine, but it's made it all seem totally normal and mainstream now that you just take and steal and borrow. So I don't know, in terms of what I've done for books, or I suppose need to think about them in context of when they were done. And a lot of these earlier books that I've done were before this like form of information was passed around, just taking book covers. But I think I do it slightly differently, or hopefully think I do. Certainly with taking the Chris Burden and forging the idea of making it exactly the same, including the binder, and that I don't sign it. And my idea, because I actually own one of the original ones, was that they would be mixed up at some point, and mine would be sold as his, and that would be the kind of ultimate, I don't know, plus maybe for both of us, the idea that we would get mixed up with the original. But yeah, you're right. Images are passed around so readily now that nothing's really shocking, and shouldn't be. But still, people like Richard Prince and Jeff Koons get into trouble, which seems ridiculous, really. Doesn't it?
Yeah, it's the most dramatic moment of the evening, this appropriation question, I think.
Yeah.
Are you happy with his answer? Oh, great.
Hello. Is it more fun to make a book with a lot of money, or is it more fun to make one with no money?
Oh, was that to me? I don't know, because I've never really made a book where there's been a lot of money.
Oh, so thank you. Okay.
Or if there has, it's been me that's had to put a lot of the money into it, which I don't mind so much. I always think it's kind of, it doesn't make really a difference whether there's, because it just becomes part of the context. It becomes part of what you do and what you can and can't do. And it's actually nice when, okay, it's great if there's a lot of money, you can do like gold-plated staples. But I prefer this idea that it's it fits with what you got, and the budget is what it is, and that's how you go about producing it. It doesn't make it better or worse. I think sometimes when there's a lot of money, it doesn't necessarily make it any better.
Yeah. Actually, this is a question that we asked to ourselves when we started 3-Star Books, because 1-Star Press is a very simple, always the same format, democratic type of production of books. And then 3-Star Books that came a few years after are very high-end books, like this book that I just showed. This is much more expensive to do than the other collection. But we don't make any difference between the two type of production in terms of value, cultural value, and invention value. They have their limits and their possibles. It's just a question of, it takes much more time to spend money in a good way, to spend more money in a good way. You think about it more.
A night more.
You didn't get you should come and, oh my God, it's a large one.
One more question, because I know you're all wanting to go off and wash. I know Tadort. Is that on here? Tadort. Is it? Is it on in 8:15? Time to get home.
All right.
No more questions? One more question.
Setting up an exhibition with an artist, and he was sitting in front of the iPhone, and he said, "Yes, I got it," and he purchased one of your little receipts in a restaurant. And I was just wondering what this work was about, like that you draw.
The one that he got, I have no idea.
Well, he was a little bit sad that it cost 72 euros or so, because you had receipts where it was, you paid maybe only 25 euros.
There's some for €2.50.
Yeah.
I can buy it back from him, okay, for 140.
The work itself, I lived in Rome for a bit, for 18 months, and they still provide you with quite elaborately handwritten receipts. So they were kind of not piling up at home, but there were a few of them. And I actually didn't have a studio, and didn't have one in Rome. And I wanted to come up with an idea of doing drawings that I could do on the living room table. So I then decided that I would start to draw on these receipts and then sell them for the same price of the dinner, because I thought it was nice that other people were basically paying for me and my family to eat, which, I don't know, traditionally it kind of, as an artist, that would be a real bonus if that happened. And what was on the receipts didn't really matter that much, so I decided I would just draw this kind of, not the ideal collection, but just other people's artworks. So it didn't really relate to me at all, because my idea was just about selling what it was for the price of the dinner. And I don't know, okay, you can get them for €2.50. Well, you can. Well, it's difficult to get them apparently, but I don't know, I think 72 euros.
How do you pick your clients?
I don't know, often it's the first one that comes up, but...
Often, but then?
Well, it generally is, which is almost like saying often, but in a slightly different way. It depends. I actually don't like this whole, sounds weird, but this feeding frenzy that I've created, that it's like your friend saying, I got it, because it was not really like that. The first ones would be on for at least half an hour. But now it's literally seconds and they sell. But I don't know, I still think 72 euros for a drawing by an artist that's...
A famous artist.
Nearly 40 is actually quite good value.
Do they resell them on eBay? Did you see anything?
If that happens, I stop. I don't do them anymore. I'm actually waiting for something that allow me to stop doing them, because I still enjoy doing the drawings on the actual bits of paper, but I don't really like I can sell them through Instagram as well, but just people write to me directly. Somehow in the program you can do that. Direct message.
It's called a DM.
DM. They DM me, and then I sell them to them, so no one actually knows that it's been up, and it just seems an easy way to do it. But I don't know, did that answer I don't have one of the books about the actual receipts or the drawings.
We got it here.
Ah, yeah.
So it's called, the Instagram account is called Monk Pictures. Just
Oh, sorry.
Monk Pictures.
Yeah. I don't know. Oh yeah, that is. But this is a project I did recently. No, I mean I still actually do these. This was maybe done a year and a half ago for a show that I did in Torino, in Italy. And I was invited by the wife and daughter of a painter called Salvo, who died maybe 3-4 years ago now, to do something not necessarily related to his work, but something, I mean, they'd seen some of these things that I'd done, where I'd taken his paintings and just dragged and dropped off the internet, sorry, and then I paint out the background and just leave the trees. And the little drawings, they would sell for €100 a tree. So depending on, and that's why within the catalogue, we made a catalogue because I did an exhibition of these in his studio. We added numbers, so you could, it doesn't make sense here because this would be the 16th tree within the book, so the ones before were also numbered. But so this one, these are canvas, so apparently that makes a difference, and these are €500 a tree. So it's €3,000 painting.
Yeah, but you have to say that Salvo is known for his trees.
Well, he made a lot of tree paintings, whereas this one, €1,000, and it's bigger than the other one. So it's all, it was all just related to the trees, and I just, I don't know. I think I came up with the idea before I realized that money doesn't grow on trees, but it was just, it just made sort of sense. And I don't know, people seem to like them. But I actually just, again, get images, get them printed onto the canvas, and then I just paint out the background. I don't paint the trees, so the trees are still kind of copies of his trees.
Trees fake?
No, the trees are sort of real copies, and the background is really painted by me, because I am a painter.
And you said you would sign what you presented?
I did say that, yes, that was something I did say. Or no, I did say I do generally sign things. On the back, do you want to hold that and sing a little song to our friends?
Oh no, I can't sing.
You have to leave?
I have to leave, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, thanks for coming.
Okay.
All right, bye-bye. Sorry. Okay.
3 or more hours?
Oh, she needs more. She's fine with that. I know there were more questions about the trees. Okay, well, I guess we could stop. Or we could just let it drag on and everyone gets all awkward. What, is he going to say anything else? I think maybe we just stop now. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.